Hello and welcome to Crossfire, the show that dives into the heart of global conflicts, where nations collide, alliances shift, and lives hang in the balance. Tonight we decode how US President-elect Donald Trump is planning to use Russia's war assets, amounting to at least $300 billion. Also on the show, Ukraine has launched a precision strike on a key Russian airfield, using the powerful US-supplied ATACMS missile system. Just miles from the Russian border, this strike marks a significant shift in Ukraine's military strategy. But the big question is, how will Russia respond? Stay with us as we unravel these high-stakes developments and reveal what they mean for the future of global power and security. In a major escalation of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, Ukraine has launched a precision strike on a key Russian military airfield, using the powerful US-supplied ATACMS missile system. The strike hit a crucial military base just miles from the Russian border, marking a significant shift in Ukraine's military strategy. With tensions already high, the big question right now is, how will Russia respond? Our next report tells you more.
An unprecedented escalation in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Ukraine has launched a direct precision strike on a major Russian military airfield, using the powerful and long-awaited US-supplied ATACMS missile system. The target, the Kalino airfield. Just 60 miles away from the Russian border, this airbase has been a cornerstone of Russia's military operations, a place where Russian warplanes have launched countless attacks on Ukrainian cities and troops. But tonight, it became the site of a dramatic new chapter in this brutal conflict. The airfield isn't just any target. This was one of the first sites Russia used to launch its assault on Ukraine, and it has since remained a critical base for Russian air operations. In fact, Ukraine first targeted this base in December 2022 with a drone attack. But what we are seeing now is an evolution in the conflict. With the introduction of long-range weapons like the ATACMS, Ukraine is shifting its tactics, hitting Russian forces where they thought they were safe. This isn't just about retaliation, it's about pushing back Russian air superiority. The timing of this attack could not have been more significant. Moscow is already concerned about Ukraine's growing military capabilities. The move to strike an airbase so deep within Russian-controlled territory is a direct challenge to Russia's operational security. It's a statement, a demonstration that Ukraine can now hit back hard against one of Russia's most important air bases. The damage from this attack could severely disrupt Russia's ability to launch aerial strikes in eastern Ukraine, potentially shifting the balance of power in the region of the war. With US weaponry in hand and a growing resolve to reclaim lost territories, Ukraine has proven once again that it is willing to go to great lengths to defend its sovereignty. So will we see an escalation of violence, or could this be the tipping point that leads to a new phase in the conflict?
As Washington prepares for a transition of power, one of the most pressing issues on the horizon is the fate of billions of dollars in frozen Russian assets. With US President-elect Donald Trump set to take office on January 20th, the question looms large. What will happen to the estimated $4 to $5 billion currently held in US banks? Will Donald Trump seize these funds to help rebuild Ukraine? Or will he use them as leverage in future negotiations with Russia? Let's decode this for you.
The fate of billions in frozen Russian assets lies in the hands of US President-elect Donald Trump, as Washington prepares for the transition of power in January next year. One of the most pressing issues on the horizon is what to do with the estimated $4 to $5 billion worth of Russian assets currently frozen in US banks and institutions. Since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, Western nations have frozen around $300 billion of Russian assets, and the US is leading the charge. But the big question remains: should these funds be confiscated and sent to Ukraine to help rebuild its shattered economy and defense infrastructure? In April, President Biden signed the Repo Act, which gave the green light to seize frozen Russian assets in the US to aid Ukraine's reconstruction efforts. The law mandates that the US government identify and freeze Russian assets within its jurisdiction. But as we approach the new year, President-elect Trump will inherit this dilemma, and with his unpredictable stance on foreign policy. The decision on whether to liquidate these assets is far from certain. While the US has already taken steps towards mobilizing these assets, Europe remains divided on the issue. The European Union, which holds around $220 billion in frozen Russian assets, has shown hesitation. It fears that it could destabilize the global currencies if other nations began pulling their assets out of Western banks. Ukrainian officials, including President Volodymyr Zelensky, have been vocal about the urgency of using these assets for Ukraine's rebuilding and humanitarian aid. While Ukraine's economy is facing a projected $486 billion in reconstruction costs, the funds are desperately needed. But what will Trump do with these frozen funds when he takes office? There lies the uncertainty. His rhetoric has hinted at possible negotiations with Russia to end the war, and some experts fear he could use these assets as a bargaining chip in future talks. Trump's decision could also have a ripple effect on Europe. If he decides to mobilize the assets, or worse, if he cuts funding for Ukraine, the EU may have no choice but to step in and liquidate the funds on its own. If Trump moves forward with confiscating Russian assets, he'll have to work closely with other G7 nations. The law stipulates that the US can only proceed with the confiscation if other member countries like the EU and the UK agree to follow suit. The coordination is critical. With Trump's unpredictable approach to diplomacy, no one knows for sure which path he will take. Will he act as a strongman and push for confiscation? Or will he seek a more cautious approach, keeping the funds frozen and perhaps using them as a leverage in future negotiations?
A fragile ceasefire is in place between Israel and Hezbollah, marking a rare diplomatic breakthrough. This was an agreement brokered by the United States and France. But as the ceasefire holds, Israel faces deepening internal struggles. The emotional and psychological toll on its military is becoming increasingly evident. With reports of battle fatigue, PTSD, and declining morale among the Israeli defense forces, manpower shortages and a drop in enlistment have raised big questions. The big question now is, how much longer can Israel sustain its military efforts on multiple fronts?
A fragile ceasefire is in place tonight between Israel and Hezbollah. An agreement brokered by the United States and France. This marks a rare diplomatic breakthrough in a region battered by war for more than a year. But it comes at a time of deepening strain within Israel's military and society. For Israel, it has been more than a year since Hamas's deadly attack on October 7 last year. The attack claimed the lives of over 1,200 Israelis. In the months since, the war has claimed over 40,000 Palestinian lives. But the emotional and psychological toll on Israel's soldiers is beginning to show now. Reports indicate that many in the Israeli Defense Forces are suffering from what's been described as battle fatigue. Soldiers are struggling with PTSD, also known as post-traumatic stress disorder. Reports also suggest that some soldiers are refusing to report for duty, overwhelmed by the mental strain of a conflict that shows no end in sight. The strain is palpable. Reservists who have been called up to fight in both Gaza and Lebanon are facing burnout, with some units reporting severe shortages. According to media reports, one 12-member reserve unit was reduced to just 5 soldiers, as 7 refused to continue serving. The ongoing toll on morale and manpower has prompted many to question how long Israel can sustain its military efforts, with a reported 15% drop in enlistments since the war began. Over 350,000 Israelis have been called to serve since the war began, but many are now unwilling or unable to return to duty. But as the ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah holds for now, the situation remains highly volatile. The conflict in Gaza continues, and with Hezbollah's presence on Israel's northern border, the potential for renewed hostilities remain a constant threat. Israel's military, already stretched thin, faces difficult decisions in the weeks to come: how to manage the current wars on multiple fronts while dealing with a demoralized and exhausted force.
In a rapidly evolving arms race, India and Pakistan are ramping up their military capabilities, each of them making significant strides in defense technology. In a significant development, the Pakistan Navy has successfully tested its new Smash ship-launched ballistic missile, which is a major advancement that strengthens its strategic position in the Indian Ocean region. As tensions rise and military competition intensifies, what does this mean for India's security and its growing presence in the region?
In a rapidly evolving arms race, India and Pakistan are stepping up their military capabilities, each with significant advancements. India has long been seen as a regional leader in military technology, and recent developments only solidify that reputation. But today, we turn our attention to Pakistan, which has announced the successful testing of its new missile system, the Smash, as it strengthens its naval and defensive reach. India's defense advancements are impressive, from the successful test of its long-range hypersonic missile on November 16th to the supersonic Tejas combat aircraft. India has firmly established itself among an elite group of nations with such capabilities. The recent hypersonic missile test was a milestone, propelling India into an exclusive club of countries capable of launching these deadly weapons. However, the balance of power in this region is shifting. Pakistan, not to be left behind, has unveiled its own game changer, the indigenously developed Smash missile, an advanced ship-launched ballistic missile with a range exceeding 350 kilometers. The new missile will significantly enhance Pakistan's naval defense capabilities and its ability to challenge large naval fleets, particularly those of neighboring India. The Smash missile is being touted as a powerful addition to Pakistan's arsenal, capable of targeting both sea and land-based threats with high precision. This missile uses sophisticated navigation technology to adjust its direction and speed mid-flight, making it incredibly agile and difficult to counter. Experts say it's particularly designed to target large naval assets such as India's aircraft carrier groups. The competition for military supremacy in the Indian Ocean is intensifying, with both India and Pakistan ramping up their capabilities. As Pakistan strengthens its naval power with the Smash missile, India is responding with advanced interceptors. The stakes are high, as both countries seek to secure their strategic interests in a region that is crucial to global trade and military dominance.
That's all we have for you in this edition of Crossfire. See you again tomorrow.